probably worth putting in context for any viewers, especially if any of this gets clipped at all. If at any point discussing this, any of us seem to be taking, glee in this kind of criticism, just know that each one of us has had countless kind of, nasty comments and messages slung our way by people kind of rallying the standard that these guys know what's going on. We just have to listen to these guys and everything will be fine.
Don't forget to subscribe.
One thing I briefly touched on in my video on Rogue Elements was the fact that some of the comments and responses that piece got were kind of taking for granted that the drinker's hands were tied behind his back. You'd get responses like, "Oh, I'd love to see what you could do in the future with more freedom, with less limiters." And it's just like, what do you think this was, guy?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's his. This is his baby. This is a director's cut. This is his thing,
I'm pretty sure that they were just kind of like letting him call whatever shots he wanted to, right?
He was a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it was money that wasn't it money that he raised to make this?
Yeah, it was his a Kickstarter that he set up with after the director bloke came to him.
Yeah,
and there is one could, I suppose, say, well, yeah, the director bloke came to him. The director bloke co-wrote the script, and he had a big part of the kind of input behind the making of it. But the thing is, there's always going to be other guys that have big inputs except for the writer, right? If we're talking about someone entering the space of creating short films or TV or what have you, there is no scenario in which one kind of auteur bloke does the whole thing. That isn't how the medium works.
No, it doesn't. That's a really good perspective. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand that even if you are the main creative voice behind any film or TV show, you are not the only person contributing to what that show is going to deliver on. There's going to be other people taking part in that, whether it be the acting, the sound, whatever it is. But Drinker is someone who says that he can see these things coming from a mile away. So you mean to tell me he was in on the post-editing process and didn't see any issue with this before it came out? That's the part that I find hard to believe. Oh, Dane, you're muted.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know until very recently, as in like a couple hours ago, I didn't know if he had addressed any of the criticism really or said anything negative about his own project or whatever. But apparently he did. And but it's in like an unlisted video.
Oh.
So
why is it unlisted? That's weird.
No, it's only for I guess
a lot of the kind of behind the scenes featurettes that they were posting when they were making Rogue Elements were unlisted as well. So maybe it's like a backers only thing that someone's stumbled across the link to. That's how I found some of the footage I used in my video.
Well, I mean,
yeah, I haven't watched this yet either, though.
It's only got 232 views, looks like. And we can be.
Someone's put in the chat, release the drinker cut.
So Elements, the first short film that we financed through Kickstarter a couple of years ago. I've talked about it on live streams a bunch of times since the film came out, but I've never...
Or was it? What was it? What do you call it? A TV thing? Whatever the fuck? I don't know.
It was a concept or proof of concept.
Yeah, but by the end it was being sold as a TV proof of concept.
Yeah, because I mean, the first thing that I ever noticed about Critical Drinker when I really paid attention to him for the first time, I made a graphic about it that got kind of went around. But like how he'll just change the framing in retrospect of whatever he just turns out to have been wrong about. So like whenever he did a trailer review for Prey, and it was just like a trailer review, and it said how not to do a Predator sequel or whatever. This looks terrible. And then of course everybody ended up generally liking Prey, and he went and changed the title to like trailer review or something like that. And it's
and there's some muddiness on the Kickstarter as to how true this kind of pivot is. Like in the most generous possible interpretation, they started making a short film. They realized it wasn't working. They turned it around into something which they then showed to some backers somewhere as a, hey, we could make a TV show out of this. And there is mention on the Kickstarter that apparently something is in development somewhere, but they don't mention if it's going to be a continuation of the short film to TV proof of concept. And also, it's very light on details and what like production or development means in this context, because everything's in production. You know what I mean? Like that's the industry is like there's the stuff you end up seeing is like a tiny fraction of the stuff that people are starting to spin up at any one point.
But the thing that I'm we can be confident about when it comes to drinkers and especially like Mahler's fans is that they do not ask questions. They're not going to be critical of the things that are said.
Well, one thing we can circle back to in a bit, maybe. I don't know if you guys have looked on the comments on his community post announcing this. Edgier than Thou brought it up earlier, but there's really a lot of pushback from his exact fan base. There's some great stuff.
So, like, they're mad that he's like asking for money again, essentially?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of that. I'm just scrolling down it now.
He doesn't need the money. That's the crazy thing. He makes enough money.
So he said on the Kickstarter that we won't put a penny of this into our own pockets, right? And that's probably true. They don't need to. Then, like you said, they're making a ton of money. But like even so, right? So this guy saying, "Will it be better and more transparent than your last one?" This person says, tell you what, you give me 237 million and I'll produce you a done film, I promise. This person says, please give up on rogue elements. This person says, no, lol. This person says, your last, quote, project was the most embarrassing shit show ever made. Then you have the nerve to slag others off at something you can't do either. And I could keep going because the entire post is comments like this.
Would it be as experimental as rogue elements?
Nah, look, that's a 3-letter response. Nah, period.
I sure hope this is April Fool's prank. Yeah, good times. Good times. I wonder if does any of this register to him? Does he even give a shit? You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Yeah, but if you think like the last project is a waste of money, that's hilarious.
I mean, it's like you say, Dane, the whales are on board, and that's kind of the main thing.
Yep. Sadly, I have to agree with the other commenters. It seems like a bad idea. It really does. Look, I'm fucking hyped for it because I've said many times in the past that for somebody who seems to know the exact formula for creating the best film or the best story, like Mahler talks like he does. I wanted to see him use that. Why would you spend your life just nitpicking movies, literally a frame at a time? When if you know all of this, you have all of this fucking wisdom and knowledge about making films, just do it, or at least make a YouTube channel where you're telling people how to do it, teaching people how to do it. So,
well, if you've cracked the code that Hollywood has been unable to crack in 100 years of making a surefire guaranteed hit. Yeah, why hide that knowledge from everybody else?
Yeah.
And the great irony here is that this post shows us, and like some of the comments on my video show us, we can make videos all the live long day. We don't, necessarily just talk about these guys, but we could do. But nothing's done more reputational damage than his own work.
I mean, that's the same thing with like Eric July. Be honest. I mean, once they get it in their head that they're going to put a thing out there themselves after they spent all these years just shitting on everything else, it's like it's got to be something amazing in it, and it just never is going to be from these guys.
And just DCU here stands for Diedrich Cinematic Universe. They're making a whole short film out of like a side character in Rogue Elements called Diedrich, who I'm sure the actor is great when he's not doing a Russian accent.
Yeah.
Plays a Russian who can't really do the accent at all. So it's going to be interesting to.
Based on his name and the accent, I assume the character was German.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but let me do some checking. Let me get that.
That's like the one interesting kind of performer in that thing is who I'm thinking of, right? Like he might have some chops. Not the guy that was acting opposite boring ass Ryan Drake. For the first scene or so.
For most of it, yeah. And the German accent is best described for the American viewers as Hogan's Heroes, well, for the older American viewers, and for the British viewers as a low level of accenting.
So, what about this whole a lucky writer will have their story transformed into a short film? What's up with that part of this thing?
Well, any viewer of The Critical Drinker, or anybody really, can submit their own script and presumably will be richly financially rewarded for doing so. I mean, you wouldn't just write a script on spec and submit it for no money.
It works on a few levels, right? On the one hand, it's obviously it fills out the pitch. You know, they probably had the other ones ready to go, and then they were like, hey, this sweetens it a bit. Let's do a crowdfunding idea thing. The next level is kind of audience goodwill, like maybe a bit of a mea culpa for Rogue Elements. Hey, yeah, maybe some of your feedback would help this whole project, guys. Maybe you're right. And then obviously zooming out the whole way, it is just kind of playing into the real big picture stuff of kind of, I guess you'd call it like pop culture populism. You know, the audience is right, the customer is correct. Power to the people. Hey, guy who watches YouTube videos and doesn't really know or care about film as a medium, but beyond that, you can do it better than the big shots.
Yeah. It just, yeah, there's Dietrich, Brian Bisson. Yeah, I thought he was like the one guy that kind of was interesting.
I can't remember what nationality he's supposed to be. I thought it was, I must have been misremembering. Because, I mean, you can't tell from the accent. Maybe he's like a German-Russian dual citizen. Bit of Slovakian in there.
Fucking, is this a chick that shot Drinker in the dick, but he, like, died? Yeah. Yeah.
Dietrich, Ryan Drake. Nationality.
I think it's probably worth watching a bit more of the video we started with, because
I'm seeing
just
little,
because
like,
I
half
know
for the previous one. So.
And I noticed he said that the whole cast is back, so that'll be interesting.
Never really taken the time to get my thoughts in some kind of order. What worked, what didn't, and what I'd do differently next time. So let's do it right now, shall we? First, the positives, because I think there are a lot of things.
I find it fucking fascinating that he's in character for this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He's in character, but he's talking about a real fucking thing that, like, really, there's, I don't know, they're blurring some lines there, man. I don't know.
Things that worked out really well with this movie. In terms of the look and feel, the cinematography, the fight sequences, and the sheer level of professionalism, work ethic, and commitment of everyone involved, I'm super proud of what we accomplished with Rogue Elements. This was not an easy film to make by any stretch, and although we were lucky to have some serious industry pros on board, for a lot of us this was our first real experience working on a project of this scale. It was definitely a learning experience, sometimes a harsh one, but it was absolutely worthwhile. The support that we got from the backers and the steady stream of updates.
Wait, pause it for a second. A learning experience. If you know how to make movies at the level of like Disney and Warner Brothers, why would this be a learning experience?
A £300,000 learning experience at that.
Right, right.
I would
so you're going into this
with a
you're going into this admitting that you didn't know how to do it. So
it's a tacit admission that all of his criticisms about, like, you know, is just like a guy sitting on his fucking couch saying, "Oh, I could do that better," when he, you know, literally can't.
And let's not forget, this is the 21st century, where how to make films has been more accessible than ever before. True. I mean, you look at the 90s indie movement when Kevin Smith made a film, which was a learning experience, and that was very successful. The Blair Witch Project, none of those guys had made a film before. That was a learning experience. So it's not like it's not something you could go into maybe learning before you spend 300,000 of your fan base's money on making.
And the other side of this is, you know, the director he worked with, like, okay, he's maybe not Martin Scorsese, but on, like, and this is something I talked about in my video, on like a basic functional level, it's fine as like a short film, a first kind of foray into this stuff. Even like The Critical Drinker, I don't think he's a very good writer. I'm sure you guys don't either. But even knowing on a basic level how to string a plot together, that's not nothing.
Right.
And the fact that it still turned out like a bunch of hot dookie, yes, that tells us they probably went about it wrong, probably should have had a smaller scope, probably should have known what they were doing more. But it also tells us that this shit is actually kind of hard, right?
Yeah.
Harder than their kind of whole soapbox rests on.
I also would like to say that going into this, like, it's the hubris, like, it's the ego these guys have. So 100%. Like Ryan was saying, there's no shortage of how-to lessons on making a short film or something along those lines. You can pay for them online. You can even find them free on YouTube. So The fact that he didn't, and he says he has connections in the industry. So you didn't have anybody in the industry to help you do this, to make it look more serviceable? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's literally just all ego. That's what it is. It's all ego and hubris.
So how much of this is just like is just straight up they want to get the bag. He wants to get the bag, right? And how much of it is like he's just been gassed up by everybody around him. He's all gassed up now and he's fucking thinking he's gonna nail it. You know what I mean? It's like 50-50.
What I'm kind of thinking of is like it's Ben Shapiro syndrome. Like looking at the stuff he puts out on YouTube and the complete lack of effort he puts into the kind of, you know, the production of it. It doesn't seem like YouTube is the critical drinker's preferred medium, right? I feel like it's kind of all that's kind of gone to his head, plus the, you know, the background he has in turning out formulaic thriller novels. Is he not kind of now looking at his YouTube status and thinking, okay, so this is a good, you know, golden goose for the time being, but couldn't it also be a kind of a ramp into doing this thing, filmmaking, which I've always kind of thought I could do better than everyone else. You know, let me try and turn this platform into a bridge into that, instead of just like maintaining the golden egg laying of the goose of this weird metaphor that I've dragged on far too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think it's money, because he makes more money off his channel than he did off this project or anything that's come from it or from his books. I think it's ego. It's got to be. Everyone's told him he's great. He always thought he was great, which is why he wrote those terrible books. And so now he just wants as many people as possible to see how great he is and give him the rewards he thinks he deserves.
And it's not all negative, right? Like, you know, hey, if you can do it, if you can fund it, make a movie. Great, good. If it's bad, that sucks. Right? It's just putting it into the context of the, you know, as Mauler would say, the cultural meta narratives around this kind of stuff is where the, you know, the funny
damage does to the meta narrative of culture. Crazy. Yeah. By the way, guys, I don't think Bent Key is going to be able to buy it.
Bent Key is gone, like it's dissolved. So
we should fold it into the Diedrich cinematic universe.
Yeah. I don't think I know it's not related to this. I don't think Daily Wire is going to be around much longer anyway. So
no, it seems like they're having some problems, to say the least.
And behind the scenes insights we were able to give them were absolutely top tier, and I've got no regrets about how any of that stuff was managed. Anyway, that's enough sucking my own dick. Let's talk about the lessons that I learned from this film. 1, making movies is expensive. And I don't mean Electric State kind of expensive, where you spend $320 million to make something that looks like a direct-to-video sci-fi movie. I mean, making films at any vaguely professional level costs way more than you could imagine.
Oh my God. Really? Really? Isn't this a guy that complains about the budgets of movies? He budgets of movies when you don't know all the details about them. You make your own movie and they're like, oh shit, this is more expensive than I thought it was going to be.
And also, he just mentioned Electric State. This is a 10-minute, unfucking listed video, supposedly just being about the lessons learned, maybe to build some confidence in the whales for the next project. It's like what we was talking about earlier about the fact that he's still in character for this. He's still got to keep the fanning the flames of the culture war bollocks, even for this ostensibly kind of journalistic, you know, honest reflection as Will Jordan of the experiences of
like little chud snacks. You got to feed him little chud snacks.
Yeah, you got to get him the chud snacks. That is nuts. Half a sentence of this 10-minute video is wasted on the electric,
which meant we could afford to hire professional actors and crew. Great stuff.
Oh, the fees and taxes. Hang on a sec.
Line from a fun little.
Wait just a minute. The fees and taxes that were deducted. So the actual budget he had was more than he thought he was going to have.
Right.
Because they were able to deduct the various fees and tax breaks.
Which is the arguments we make about the big budget movies when actors have high tags to go along with them. We're like, we don't know how much money they saved in rebates and fees and taxes and things like that. We don't know those things. And
Nerdrotic does. Oh, don't forget that. Nerdrotic knows exactly every penny Disney spends on everything.
Exactly. But you also notice he's not telling us here. He's not telling us how much he saved. And he's not giving us the numbers.
To be as generous as possible. Don't know why, but just in case, the amount of that budget that the Kickstarter platform fees took out, even if so,
Possibly, yeah.
that's 5%. You've still got nearly 300 grand in pounds. So why are you bringing that up?
A producer's job is supposed to be to know what those are before you make the film.
Exactly.
So what role is he going to be taking in this officially? Is it said?
Well, all I know is if he didn't understand the budgeting of making a movie, why was he making a movie? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And again, it's like these are the kinks you work out maybe with a 20 grand budget.
Well, so the way I saw it, there was that, from what I understand, is that it was like a guy or a couple of guys that have a pretty extensive history of working in the film industry on like stunts and whatnot, right? That approached him wanting to make a Ryan Drake thing. And
a couple of the listed producers on this,
the director
shopping it around Hollywood, and they previously produced a bunch of TV, a lot of the sort of Canadian short stuff from the 90s, but also 24. So what help were they?
Yeah, it's the director that came to him, and I think he is known for, well, not known, but he previously did a lot smaller scale indie stuff, sometimes even without a budget. So it's understandable that he wouldn't necessarily know all this in pitching the concept to Drinker. But as you say, from the jump, they had industry names attached. From the jump, all this was known. All this is yap to kind of translate into, if we run it through the D-critical Drinker fire, it's here are some reasons that sound good to you. Now, money, please.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he didn't even budget out the film. That's the part that's like baffling to me. He asked for an arbitrary amount of money. He just said, I want this amount of money. What if he didn't spend the whole... We don't know how much of this money went into the movie. Did he pocket some of it? We don't know. There's no transparency.
He said in this new thing that none of it's going to go to them, right? So, like, how does he know that? How does he know that that's even the case if he doesn't know how to fucking budget?
And I'm sure the original amount he asked for this was like 50 grand. What the hell type of film did he think he was going to make for 50 grand?
Exactly.
Make for 300? Because again, I'll come. A lot of my knowledge comes from the indie movies of the 90s. Kevin Smith chose to make the film he did because that's how much we could afford to make it for. He set it in a convenience store because he had one that he could use. That's what you do when you're doing a first thing.
From memory, I think the only salient change in the description of the original Rogue Elements pitch, which was for far less, as you say, I think it was supposed to have a shorter runtime. The rest of the description is similar, like, fewer scenes and stuff, but there's the warehouse infiltration thing that was always part of it, the action sequences, all this. Either way, if this whole thing was a learning experience and you didn't realize it would be this expensive, like, hey, that's fine. It's a learning process. But doesn't that kind of tell us that when you put the original Kickstarter up with the original goal, you had no fucking clue?
I don't see $300,000 on the screen when I watch this thing.
Oh, no, £300,000. So more than $300,000.
Right. Well, so I don't see that either. So I'm just wondering what the fuck happened to the rest of the money, and the way that it's being done. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's already going to be funded. It's pretty clear that that's the case based on what it's already made. So they're going to get the money to do the thing. It doesn't matter how it actually is received because they're going to pretend like it's a win. That's what they're doing with this now.
Yeah, it's free money.
They're acting like this one that pretty much everybody, even his own fan base, was like, it's pretty bad, or at least not very great. You know what I mean? And they're acting like it's some kind of big win, and that that's a cause to spin off into a bunch of fucking other short films about these.
What's interesting about the pitch video you put up for this is a lot of the comments don't realize that this ever got made. Yeah, they're all looking forward to his first film, his first attempt. Which
possibly also worth noting is, even if, and I believe this because I feel like there's not a ton of transparency, but there's enough that this would be, it'd be a big enough scandal that if it came out they've been laundering some money, I don't think they'd do it. Even if no money goes into their own pockets, which, yeah, it probably won't, that doesn't mean they don't benefit from it, right? Like, at worst, what is this? It's a bunch of shit on a CV. Oh yeah, I fucking executive produced a whole run of short films, blah, 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 which, sure, that's not going to get you to direct the next fucking Captain Marvel movie, but like, maybe 10 years time, maybe, when China's taken over the world, maybe they take YouTube down. Drinker's looking for a job running a local TV station in Scotland. This gets him in the door, you know? And
So this was filmed in Peterborough, Ontario, in Canada. Is where this movie was filmed. I just looked up the value of 300, roughly 300K pound, to Canadian dollars. Do you want to know how much he would have made, or how much money he would have transferred it to when he went to Canada?
It's probably
globally, that's got to go like, yeah, double-ish, right?
It's close to double, yeah. It's almost 600 grand in Canadian.
Wow. Wow.
Somewhere there is just a warehouse full of maple syrup that is just, you know.
Amateur project into an actual legit production, the costs and the red tape and the complications skyrocket. Now you have to deal with actors unions and agents and crew unions and health and safety and tax regulations and a million other things that you don't even need to remotely care about when you're just filming a movie with your buddies. Now, I totally get that all of this stuff is in place to keep people safe, and for the most part, I absolutely support those kinds of safeguards, but fuck me, it does lead to some pretty absurd roadblocks. Like, imagine you want to have a fight scene in a shallow pool of water for dramatic effect. Well, you're going to need a lifeguard and a paramedic on hand, and the water has to be chemically tested, and the actors have to be briefed on health and safety protocols. And
what? He has a problem with this?
Yeah, man,
I can't believe Rogue Elements was shit because of woke. I can't believe that. That's crazy.
That makes perfect sense.
His movie was only sucked because of woke. It's because of the woke lifeguards outside all the puddles.
I'd seen something said about what he ends up laying some blame on, and I'm waiting for him to do it, but I don't want to spoil it yet.
I mean, this stuff is just mad, though. Yeah, the water might have horrible diseases in it because it's on the ground, and the actors might get it in their mouths.
All right. So what we're going to do for this shot is I'm going to fucking give you a swirly in this random puddle outside a warehouse I found, and you're going to drink that shit down, and we're going to get a few takes of that. Yeah, sound good?
All morning getting takes on this, so just, go ahead and get down there and suck that shit up, buddy.
Yeah, get a mouthful.
And if you don't want to have to deal with all of those health and safety issues, just don't have it be near a puddle.
Or don't do a fucking Kickstarter for a massive movie. Just take the camera out with your buddies and make a short film, you know?
Yeah. But my brilliant idea about the puddle, it has to happen.
And you have to have warm blankets and heaters and probably an on-site therapist as well. This is all stuff that has to be factored into the budget, the time scale, and the script. And because we didn't have much...
What's probably doing that?
It wasn't.
Yeah, what is probably doing there?
He's just fucking making shit up to, like, butter up his point about woke ruining his movie. Like, dude... What's probably doing that? You made the movie. You know if there was a therapist there. Spoiler alert, there wasn't.
Unless they were supposed to have a fight scene which actually took place with one of their faces getting shoved in a puddle, and they did cut it for that very reason.
Yeah.
So he's sort of meddling with the truth there, where it says, like, this is what we spent just so they could fight near puddles, when actually what he means to say is we cut a scene where a guy's face was in the water because health and safety made it cost prohibitive.
And again, 10-minute unlisted video. Maybe take out the electric state bit earlier in. You got room to explain what you mean there. I don't know. I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't really, I'm kind of a novice. I don't really know what I'm talking about.
That even whenever you have like pretty much full control over your project, it's gonna sneak in there and fuck you up.
Yeah, it gets in there. It'll get through the cracks.
It's woke to have safety on set. So
yeah,
there we go.
Which resulted in a lot of hasty rewriting further down the roads. But I'll talk more about that soon. Believe that. 2. A scriptwriter has no control over the end product. There's basically 3 versions of the movie. The version...
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an insightful comment. I'm just like, what the...
I mean, that's what one.
He was on set writing stuff. I saw clips of him writing on set. Like
what he said there is true. A writer doesn't have any say once they've turned in their script, but he's not a writer on this project.
He was a co-writer, I think, but like,
the
sentence as
a writer.
The sentence as a writer has no control over the finished product.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't have direct control. Things change. You have no control. What does that mean? It's just like, yeah, so I wrote a script about a guy going into a warehouse. They actually filmed it, and it turned out it was about like animated gnomes fighting off a dragon. Yes, I'm just the script writer. What do I know?
He's absolving himself of criticism. That's what he's doing.
He was on set the whole time.
Right.
He had a cameo in it.
Well,
he He's a producer on it.
The other thing,
raised money for it.
Isn't his argument a lot of times that when these movies are made, that like Lord of the Rings, right? These kinds of films and stuff, they want someone on set that represents the value of the original, the fidelity from the original books or wherever it's coming from on screen. That's one of his biggest complaints. That's been the complaint about Snow White this whole time, is that the fidelity was changed, right? So if the actual person that wrote the books is alive and on set while this is going on and signs off on it, then it is actually his fault. He said it was okay.
He's going to try and present it as if the guy that came to him wanting to make a movie or a short film about his bullshit is going to like not listen to him if he's got some real concerns about the direction of things or whatever, or how things are looking. Come on. You know?
Yeah, like further to Eric's point, the charge they always level is, okay, maybe it's kind of tacitly implied that we were all on board with the fact that things change in the production process, but they need to have the guy there to be the hand on the tiller. They had the guy here. You were the guy.
Also, is he so clueless about the filmmaking process that he doesn't realize that scripts always change?
Bingo.
First
Yeah, Schrodinger's drunkard.
What this tells me, we're almost 3 minutes into this video, it tells me that he doesn't know how to make movies. So why is he a critic of movies? That's what I'm getting from this.
Pretty much all of his content. I mean, he's done that already with his other content, but you know.
I tell you, if he'd put half the effort into the movie as he did, building in all the sort of barely visible excuses into the first 2 minutes of this video, hey, we'd have a corker on our hands.
You want to make, the version you're allowed to make, and finally, the version you're forced to make. The first version is that magical first draft of the script where you don't have to worry about logistics or budget. The second version is one you're allowed to make after a line producer's worked out how much it's all going to cost and cuts most of your favorite stuff out. And finally, there's a version you're forced to make once the cameras actually start rolling, when logistical issues on set, bad weather delaying filming, having to choreograph some challenging fight sequences to tight timescales, and
this sounds like excuse after excuse after excuse, which is something
like saying these are things that you have to sometimes do to get what you wrote. Like he's not even saying things didn't happen. It's just you had to wait because of weather, or you had to choreograph the fight scene. Oh my god!
Yeah,
I am expecting this whole kind of 1 minute ramble we've just had in the middle of every upcoming big tentpole franchise movie he reviews on this channel. By the way,
yeah, he's gonna be like,
if it's not there, I'm gonna be real shocked.
Way too hard on these things. Yeah.
Expectations of what the actors could deliver all starts to factor in. In our case, the actress playing the character of Anya had a lot of trouble with her dialogue, forcing a rewrite of most of her scenes. I'd written a big dramatic monologue for her at the end that would basically explain her motivations for being there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there it is. That's what I was waiting on. Somebody had
fucking
thrown one of the actresses under the bus, and there it is.
No, you don't understand. The movie was good. It's just the actress we hired couldn't read her lines, which was really good, guys. I promise. If you read the original lines, it all makes sense.
Like the main woman in the movie was the problem. The main woman.
We weren't competent enough to hire a good actress for an important role, and that really fucked us. Is what he's saying.
It had nothing to do with the dialogue she was being given being unreadable.
Yeah, he's also there's this layer which we're getting caught on here reasonably of like throwing the actress under the bus, making out that they've hired an actor that can't read lines. But it's also just think about the claim. Yeah, the story was a bit muddy, nothing was really explained right, but I promise there was a couple of sentences in the original script which made it all perfect. Like, what? No, what are you talking about?
What he's saying is that they had to cut out a dump of exposition. Would they basically explain her motivations for being there? That's exposition. It's better that it's not there. It's better that it's cut. It gives a little bit of mystery to her character. Her character, for me, was the best thing in it because we didn't hear her speak too much and she didn't have to deliver his dog shit dialogue.
I do think we were given too little with this character. Like, I think that about all of the characters, really. But it's like, I agree with you that the way to fix that isn't to airdrop a big fucking speech in at the end. It's to kind of thicken out the character the whole way through, right?
So on the new Kickstarter, he does say, or whoever wrote it does say that, like, you know, with this one we aimed it for the fans, the people that supported it. So people that know the books and already know the characters. That's why you didn't understand anything that was fucking going on in this thing. because, you know, we just dropped you right in the middle of it going on and didn't explain anything. It's, you know, seems like fucking excuse and cope, but for just bad writing. But yeah, so now they're saying that they're going to do it different. They're going to actually write it, you know, so you can follow what the fuck is happening if you haven't read the books or whatever.
That's very generous of them.
Right.
Her past relationship to Drake, and her warning that she wouldn't be around to bail him out next time. It was a neat way of wrapping up her character's presence in the movie, but because she couldn't nail the delivery and there wasn't time to do like 50 takes until she got it right, there was no choice but for Travis, the director, to quickly rewrite the script and improvise a solution. That is just one example of the many things that you absolutely can't control or predict. 3. We wrote the script all wrong. See, when we first came up with the idea...
Is this acknowledging wrongdoing here?
It's going to be like a kind of winky kind of nod towards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of Rogue Elements, we imagined a tiny budget of just £20,000, which might seem like a lot on the surface, but trust me, it isn't when you're trying to make a film. Anyway, we came up with a very basic script along those lines. Ryan Drake has to sneak into a building of some sort, take out a few guards along the way to rescue his target, and eventually runs into Anya, who also happens to be there for reasons of her own. It was a simple but effective way of bringing together the two main characters from the books, with a little bit of action and a hint of the intrigue and mystery that's one of the hallmarks of the series. And the whole thing was designed to be wrapped up in about 15 minutes. That's great and all, but once we realised we now had like 10 times the budget we'd originally asked for, it was pretty obvious that a simple 15-minute short wasn't going to cut it. People were going to expect a lot more from us, and so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to keep going bigger and more ambitious. So we began adding things to the script.
Is he actually saying that because they had too much money, they couldn't write a better script? Is that what this is?
Well, you would assume that, but then earlier he said he didn't have enough money, so I'm a little confused. They had more money than... No, go on.
No, it's like horseshoe budget, right? There was the sweet spot, but too little money wouldn't have been enough. Too much ruined it. And like, this is obvious. What he's saying here: if you divorce, if this is just like an anonymous first-time filmmaker, this is fair enough. But put it in his context, he should have known better. And also, like all the people that individually gave you a bit of money to make what was sold to them as a short film, a basic short film, you're then saying, we couldn't hack the kind of expansion process that we wanted to do with that. Maybe that's true. Maybe that makes you less skilled at this than you think you are. Whatever. The people that gave you the money, that funded this, they weren't thinking, I'm going to give you £10, but if everyone else gives £10 as well and we get the budget, I want it to be longer. No, they gave the money to, they funded the thing you sold them, and that was a short thing. So, like, why are you even making it bigger? Put that into a kitty and roll that out for the, the bloody Rogue Elements 2 that you're doing now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you've been given 20 grand if you've asked for 20 grand and they've given you 10 times that, you've still said that what you're making is a short film. So why get it in your head that, we've had 10 times as much money. They haven't made it 10 times longer. They've only made it 3 times longer. But why would you think we need to expand it to 45 minutes? Make what you said you were going to make, but make it really fucking good.
You can close Kickstarter fundraising rounds, right?
Yep.
That is a thing you can do. Yeah.
I mean, also the scene that he described is in the short film, and it's not like amazing. I don't see how just if taking some time out, the padded time out of the before or after that scene or that moment is going to make that any better. But
the skeleton of that is still in the film, and we'll never know if the original script draft would have made a perfect little pocket of content and it was just ruined by blurting it out. Maybe that is true, but also it's a lot easier to say that's true than that to actually have been the case.
Yeah, much like the actress that can't nail her lines, she just a couple of lines, you guys would be swooning over this.
More characters, more layers of intrigue, and especially more references to people and events from the books. And I think
to shit that nobody would know what the fuck it is. Great.
Get them keys jangling, baby.
That's also not a very good idea if you are going to make what he eventually called this a proof of concept.
Yeah, right. A proof of concept. Why would you make it to where it's literally doesn't explain almost anything about who these people are, other than like the most superficial, line to kind of give you some idea. But
yeah, there's a tension, right, between pivoting it into a proof of concept, which is basically, hey, bunch of people that don't know what this can be a thing, and kind of fooling it with key jangle nostalgia bay moment for the 20 people that read this. No, that's not fair. It sold well, I think, 15 years ago for the bunch of Scottish people that read this 15 years ago. It's like, on the one hand, you're trying to widen it out, and then on the other hand, you're trying to kind of narrow it back down. I don't know. Doesn't seem like there was a whole bunch of great vision on this.
About the sales of his books, like I haven't really looked too hard, but I haven't seen anything how well they sold.
I've not looked super well, but I understand it is a step up from like guy who self-published a book and then brags about it. Like it's a step above that.
It's still airport bookstore dad bait.
Oh yeah.
I think in retrospect, this is where we went a bit wrong with Rogue Elements, because most of the audience weren't familiar with the books and so didn't understand most of the references and allusions to past events. The result is...
I'm willing to bet, I don't know for sure, but I'm just willing to bet that he has complained about the MCU doing stuff like this before.
Yeah.
You know
I'm also willing to bet that I could have read all these books and read the original script or watched the version that did come out, and it wouldn't have been much better.
Right. I mean, almost half the reason for that being that the music was way too fucking loud. Can't fucking understand anything I say.
That it all just became a bit bloated and confusing, dumping a lot of information on them and expecting them to just roll with it. They didn't really understand who Anya was, for example, or her relationship to Drake, or the history between the characters that forms a major part of the film. And the rewrites we were forced to do on set certainly didn't help the situation. Also, the idea of taking a simple script designed to be shot quickly and efficiently and bolting more and more stuff onto it to bulk it up was a fundamentally bad approach to script writing. Looking back now, it would have been much better to just scrap the whole...
I mean, you're right, man. If I slandered you, then I'm glad that I did. I'm proud of it, I guess. I don't even know what you're talking about, but cool, man. I'm glad I did that. Cool.
Concept and build an entirely new story from the ground up. That right there is a very important lesson that we learned. Number 4, this movie was always going to be polarizing. Let's be honest here, when you're a YouTuber that criticizes movies for a living, you're always going to be divisive, and that attitude is going to bleed over into everything that you make. Fans of my channel were probably going to be more forgiving towards a film like this and root for it to succeed, whereas people who just hate me and want to see me fail at everything were always going to find reasons to shit on Rogue Elements.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
The Eric July cope. It can't possibly be
rent free.
So since they hate Marvel and DC and Disney and all of that, they're going to proactively want for it to fail. That's what he's saying here.
Yeah, notice what's going on here. It's not he's following up the point of, yeah, we fucked up in a few ways, probably could have been done better. He's following that up with yeah, some of you guys liked it. You're my fans. I love you. You're all, we're all cool little guys. And then some guys didn't like it because they're preying on my downfall. If you didn't like this, you're kind of a hater. You probably hate maxing. You're probably one of these pillar of garbage type people, and that's why people don't like it.
To be fair, you guys should not have spent 2 years making video after video about why this is going to suck. That's probably
true.
Why it failed.
Yeah.
The thousands and thousands of videos between all of your channels that you've made about why Rogue Elements was non-woke.
Man, I tell you what, the day this film dropped was I breathed a sweet sigh of release, because that was actually the first time I slept since the Kickstarter post dropped, because I'd just been live streaming the whole. I mean, you guys know, you were there. We were just going 24/7, hate farming this in anticipation of it dropping. Oh shit! Hold on, I think I'm thinking of some other guys.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of people actually covered this before it got made was tiny.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Obviously, he's right that there was going to be a divisive reaction to this, more so than just a random guy because he's the critical drinker. And he's right that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's a thing he does, and it's a thing a lot of these guys do, where they tell a truth, but they position it to be a far bigger truth than it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because if you look at the actual facts of it, the numbers of people that watched it. Because people who didn't like it and people who liked it all would have watched it, but the number of people that watched it is tiny compared to the number of people that watch all of his other content.
Yeah, he does a Snow White, 7-minute Snow White review or whatever, and it gets like 1.5 million in 24 hours. He does, drops this shit, and I don't know, it was like a week or two after the last time I saw it, I think, and it didn't have a couple 100,000 maybe.
Yeah.
It's not great, man, and it's it just goes to show like should be pretty obvious to anybody that's not just like one of their cultists, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean they can't make positive content for their channel. They've indoctrinated their audience. So,
yep.
What I'm thinking is, we're on point 4 of this video, right? This point 4 is I'm a YouTuber, therefore it was never going to get a fair treatment. If the whole video had just been point 3, which is a maybe slightly massaged version of the truth of the budget blew up, we didn't know how to account for that, we did the wrong things, we thought it turned out okay, but we understand why people didn't like it. If that was the whole video, I wouldn't fucking be here, and I don't think you guys would either. But it's just because the little shit nugget of truth they always drop is just sandwiched in between so much other bollocks.
Yeah, it always is. And so like part of this, I guess, is just like cope for himself, and I imagine he actually tells himself these things, but also it's feeding the potential marks what they need to hear to open their wallets.
Well, yeah, because as I said, no amount of people hating this accounts for how few people watched it.
Yeah.
Wait, is this real? Does he do this? Come on. All right, let's go.
No matter how good or bad it was. And well, if it makes them feel better about themselves to tear apart something like this without ever taking the risk of making anything of their own.
Is that the only
reason?
The
thing I said earlier.
Come on, man. Come the fuck on, you disingenuous piece of shit. He's been doing it for years, and then he's God damn it. All right.
He's making this. It wasn't his money.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
risk. I guess like creative risk, like reputational risk, but even still, squirrely language.
To risk one's reputation, one needs to have a reputation to risk, though. Surely.
Fair point.
Fair enough, I guess. That being said, I have been lucky enough to get some actual good faith feedback, so I've tried to compile the most consistent issues here. The first is that the film looks and feels cheap, and I've got to admit, my initial response to this is, no shit. It cost less than most movies spend on catering. The more detailed response is that out of the £300,000 we raised on Kickstarter, about 30,000 of that was lost right off the bat, partly because of taxes, partly from Kickstarter taking their fees, and partly because inevitably a few of the pledges ended up failing or getting revoked. So in the end, we had 270 grand to spend, which isn't a whole lot when you're making a 40-minute short film with a large crew and several pretty challenging actions.
Keep in mind, they started thinking they were going to have 20 grand.
Yeah, and he's just been talking about how they scaled it up and how that was a mistake, and now he's turning around and saying, well, we only had 270 grand, and that's not enough for a big, spectacular,
chose to not continue scaling it up or to scale it back down before you started filming. There's like a whole bunch of time in there, I'm sure, that they could have done that.
Yeah. Point A is most short films, even of this length, have a smaller budget, indie ones at least. Point B is that, yes, okay, maybe that isn't enough for what you did, but you've just been telling us how you shouldn't have done what you did. So,
but didn't he also say they saved a bunch of money on fees and rebates? Didn't he say that earlier? So
I didn't know if what he said earlier was just another version of this, like, well, the money got eaten up by Kickstarter.
Yeah, 5%. I'm not sure if he was saying that that's how much they lost through taxes and fees, or how much. I mean, they probably didn't take advantage of any tax breaks because they didn't know about it, if he's to be believed about how bad the job the producers did. But just to contextualize this, in 2010, Gareth Edwards made Monsters for 500,000.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm looking right now, so just like there's different answers, but how much does it generally cost to finance a short film? This one answer here says for a pretty decent, high quality short film, $6,000 to $7,000.
Monsters is almost twice the length as well. I've just looked.
94 minutes, so twice the length, twice the budget.
Jesus Christ!
Doesn't look cheap.
The thing is that this filmed in this. I used to review Arrowverse shows. I know for years. This film with a lot of people in this movie were people like the actress he's talking about. I think her name is Olena. is the actress's name, who played, I think it's Anya is the character. She was on several of the Arrowverse shows. So I know for a fact they save money. I mean, you can save, if I remember correctly, it's like anywhere between 30 and 70% of your budget comes back to you through the government if you use all Canadian actors and crew, which I'm sure he did based on who we see in the
and that's why
film.
they can't do the accents.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Action sequences, all of which eat up a lot of time and budget. Should we have scaled back the action to focus more on character? Possibly, but then we did promote it as an action thriller, and I suspect we'd have been criticised for making something too conservative and boring.
You promoted it as a
sometimes
15-minute short
expectations can be
film.
a little bit difficult to live up to, I guess. I think some people genuinely thought we were going to produce a Michael Bay action movie in a fraction of the time, and with a
No,
budget.
they didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing like a run.
These are like straw man arguments. Nobody,
Right.
I don't remember
Yeah.
anybody saying any of this.
1,000 times smaller. All I can say is that we squeezed every penny we could out of this one, and we pushed the limits of what we could do on this kind of budget because, well, we needed to understand what those limits actually were. Rogue Elements was a test to see what we could achieve with limited resources and how best to go about it. And in that sense, it absolutely did what it needed to do. The second
Note
criticism
also that
I was a bit
all
of a
that time has been
hypocrite.
taken up with, he's going to pick like a couple of quote, good faith criticisms. That one's just eaten up a whole bunch of time. And that's like a really weak criticism, like
Yeah.
that it looks cheap. Because
Also-
obviously that's
oh,
something
sorry.
that people will say only watching Hollywood movies. Yeah, it does look cheap compared to those.
Mhm.
It's just that the framing of this video is all over the place and it's just picking the softest little things and then pretending like they're the hard balls coming your way.
But I also want to point out that originally it was pitched as a short film and then it became a proof of concept. So him sort of rewriting history here by saying this was always going to be, I guess, a learning thing for them. That isn't what he pitched it at originally when he raised all that money. When he raised all that money, he pitched it as a film.
Yeah. I mean, he's a master of reframing narrative. I mean, that's just what he does. I'm really interested to see what he's about to say here. I feel like this is going to be pretty fucked up. Right after this chick aims at his dick and hits him in the head.
Is that I was a bit of a hypocrite for writing girl
Now
bosses.
that's the recoil.
When it's
Okay,
Sorry.
so you wrote girl bosses.
Leave
What's going to say?
Yeah,
about
I'm
that?
ready for this.
spent so much time calling that shit out in Hollywood movies. And to this, I'd suggest rewatching the film a little bit closer. You might just be surprised by what you see. For example, Anya's big fight scene happens in the warehouse near the end, where she takes down several operatives using a combination of a knife and close-range gunfire. How does she manage this? Because they've just been hit with a stun grenade that went off.
So
Here's the thing, though.
his
Women
prey-
actually have slower reflexes, so like they actually, as men, they actually would have recovered faster. So
True.
it doesn't work.
True.
Kind of, they would have overpowered her. She's a woman. Kind of,
If
it doesn't
somebody
work.
wants to get to this before I do, please do. But like, I this needs to be done. Somebody, his prey review. I remember him
Yeah.
essentially dismissing the shit that she does to fight that, despite there being plenty of reasons why she was able. It's not like she just like one-on-one soloed that fucking predator. There was
I've
several
made a
actions.
video literally all about. It's like a sort of it's not a recap. It's like a bit by bit rereading of that movie about how the entire theme of it is like adaptation, right?
Yeah.
All throughout the movie, you see her pick these little things up, and then the only way she beats the Predator, or even the French guys earlier on, is through all these little things.
Your
That's
Brotherhood too.
yeah, exactly. That's bad. That's woke. But no, actually, she threw a flashbang here, and that's kind of
Well,
different.
Man, that's clever writing. That's how you just
Yeah.
get by all that girl boss bullshit right there. Is a flashbang.
Also, is he saying that his main female character is just a weak woman,
Yeah,
Well,
she
even
couldn't have done
though-
it if she didn't. Yeah.
even though she's got a long relationship with Ryan Drake, presumably of him always saving her because she is such a weak woman?
Right.
Who, although saying that, she does survive a rocket launcher blast, which can't be that weak.
Also, it probably also should be said, the whole hey guys, maybe you should watch the movie a bit more closely. Maybe you guys should watch it again if you think that. It's like, all right, buddy. Thing is though, if a million people watch it, they didn't, and come away with the idea that she's a girl boss, and your whole thing is you want movies not to present women as girl bosses, like maybe technically she isn't, But you failed in presenting that.
Right.
Oh shit, I need to change the title of my pre-video back. I changed it for a stupid joke in a group chat and it's still public. Have you guys seen the Instagram meme of the guys from Sweet Life of Zach and Cody? The little twins.
Yeah,
there's like some stupid edit someone made of them, like a commercial they did, and that if any of you have got brain rot, go on Instagram and search up I crushed the alien. It's a stupid meme. And a few days ago, I changed this public video that's got thousands of views from pray how to kill an alien to pray how to crush the alien. And I forgot to change it back. That's completely unrelated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so, man. I think that's what he's trying to say here, which I guess he just forgot in many reviews. I'm confident that he's done of other movies.
Right in the middle of the room. Most of them can barely even see or hear at this point, never mind fight, so that gives her a tremendous advantage. The other example...
If you apply context to what actually happens in the film, then it's not as reductive as he says people were making it.
Well, is that right?
Interesting. It's interesting.
Luckily, his fans never actually watch the film that he comments on, so they will be completely clueless about any sort of contextual explanation for girl bosses that he's called out.
And I think over time, more and more of these guys' audience do not watch the films. You know what I mean? Like it's
there's a drop off.
I think that they generally they will just watch this content and think that they've seen the movie essentially. I mean, there was that one Smud boy that was making videos back and forth with Edgier Than Now, who they had not seen what movie was that? Anyway, I forget the name of the movie, but it was
the point stands.
Yeah.
Example is Frost's rooftop fight scene against Kroger, where he's clearly way bigger and stronger than her, but doesn't just immediately knock her out. Girl boss much? Well, again,
I mean, did she do the jump and scissor legs on his head thing that Black Widow does? No.
To be fair to her, that one punch clearly missed, and if we know anything from their coverage of the Echo did, that's fine.
Indefensible.
True.
If you actually pay attention to the fight, you'll notice that she's never once portrayed as a match for him physically and has to resort to weapons and ambushes to try to even the odds.
So this is all sort of like cherry picking stuff. He's just coming up with cope reasons for why he doesn't think she's a girl boss.
And note that what he's just said there is essentially, some people were asking why this woman put up a fight against this guy. But if you watch it, you'll notice that she never actually puts up a fight with this guy.
Well, the implication of what he's saying is that it's stuff in Marvel or whatever the hell that he typically talks about, Disney products mostly, that the girl is presented as being a match for a bigger guy, which I don't know that really is the case at all. Unless there's some kind of superpowers involved or whatever, but
sometimes is, but it's always the woman who is the match, has some spy training or whatever that is you as the viewer don't know what level that went to, so you kind of buy it as an explanation. And hey, why am I saying this? Everyone with a fucking brain that doesn't watch media in bad faith knows that.
Although Claudia Winkleman here must have some sort of superpower because she's not bleeding, she's not bruised, she seems completely unaffected by the blows that the big fellow is raining down on her. So,
yep, and he gets sniped by a man, as it should be.
My God, continuity error.
You remember the beginning of this where it's got the other chick? She's in the same car, parking garage as the people she's gonna snipe, a few rows away.
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy.
Well, no doubt if all the guys in that car park were also Critical Drinkers fans, they wouldn't notice a woman anyway.
Even then, she's barely able to hold her own and soon gets cornered and overpowered and has to be saved by one of her teammates. Kroger even mentions at one point when he has her
hold her own, so she does hold her own, is what he's saying.
I mean, he's right in that in this scene he gets the better of her pretty quickly, but he's just been showing us the previous scene where he doesn't.
Pinned down that he's not even trying. He's just toying with her, basically, drawing the fight out for his own amusement. The whole thing was specifically scripted and choreographed to avoid the kind of girl boss bullshit you see in so many movies now. Yeah, we still wanted it to
he's not even trying there. He's not even trying. You can see by the look on his face, he's not even trying.
I mean, I buy that they tried to do that, but when the result of you, here's the thing. When you script out and choreograph out a sequence with the idea that, okay, these people aren't necessarily a physical match, but you've got to have a bit of a fight to make it look convincing, and the end result of that is something that gets read as, oh wow, she's not instantly vaporized, girl boss match. You shouldn't just say, no, actually, we planned that out to avoid that. You should think, maybe, what about if all the stuff I'm calling girl boss is the exact same fucking thing as this?
Yes. Yeah, he should really just stop and take a moment to just shove his own head up his fucking ass.
Could you imagine if, like, every time Disney or, Marvel or one of these other companies got criticism about girl bosses, they made cope videos about it? Like, this is why they're not a girl boss. Like, it's just so stupid.
Also did what we could to make it somewhat believable. The other big criticism is that the script writing is just bad and unoriginal, like any other generic action thriller story. And this is actually an interesting one because it gets right to the heart of what we do with this movie. Yes, we absolutely could have produced some crazy experimental piece of surreal existentialism that 90% of the audience...
Wait, is that the only two options? Just like
yeah, no, it is.
Or some kind of experimental...
Those are the only two films that get made, Dane. Come on. You should be watching
you either watch fucking Solaris or you're watching... what's an action movie? Mission Impossible. Those are the only two movies that exist, which is why the movie we're currently watching is Mission Impossible, as we're all aware. Yeah. Only two movies exist.
Right up there. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that they had to do safety regulations and stuff, because they never do that in Mission Impossible movies.
Oh no.
Fucking wokeness.
Wouldn't even understand or have any interest in, but when you're taking your first shot at something like this, and more importantly, you're spending other people's money to do it, you're very much aware of the pressure and expectation that's on you. There's a time and a place to take wild creative risks and do something completely out of left field, but for us, this wasn't it. This was a time to play it safer and more conventional, and if people want to criticize...
That's the spectrum right there, the two possibilities of film.
I love this because obviously, as is immediately apparent to any living organism with ears, this is like the biggest fucking false dichotomy ever created, right? But then he's coming down on the correct side of that false dichotomy and just owning, like, we went the generic route, and it's like, thank you for saying that. That's that's not the end of it, though, is it? Like,
I don't think he understands that there's a difference between, like, when you go into a supermarket, you can either have the granola, or you can have Kellogg's cornflakes, or you can have Shop's own brand cornflakes. And what he's made is the Shop's own brand.
Yeah. And it's weird because, like, when people are saying this, sorry, I want to circle back to the cereal conversation in a minute because I'm actually getting kind of hungry right now. But it's like, yeah, okay, it's generic. And then what, drinker? The and then what is, where's the fucking difference between all the shit you complain about and this? But it's just gonna, he's just gonna cut it off at the, we did a little generic. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he calls other stuff bland. That's one of his favorite words. Bland, uninspiring. Like, he says that about a lot of Hollywood films.
And like the rest of the token criticisms he brings up here to kind of defang and take apart, like, he lops a section off, gives like a half-hearted, yeah, okay, maybe, if that's like your opinion, man, and then just sets it down. And it's like, all of those were going somewhere. People who said those, that was never the end of the story, that this is the beginning of the criticism, and you're treating it like the entire fucking article. But speak your shit, do your shit.
Us for that? Well, I'm happy to take that on the chin. All of this is to say that Rogue Elements for us was very much a first step. It was always going to be an imperfect first step, and in hindsight, it's easy to see where certain things could have been done differently, but ultimately, I think it achieved what we set out to do with it. It basically taught us how to make films, the things that work.
What they set out to do. They set out to do this.
This is like the guy who buys the $10,000 camera to like get into amateur photography.
Yeah.
No, this is like the guy who borrows his friend's money to do that.
He buys a fucking, just like a $12 or like a $7,000 fucking Les Paul.
No, this is that guy. Those guys exist, and this is that guy
for sure.
Yeah, if I was going to learn how to make film, maybe I would have stopped the Kickstarter at 20,000.
Yeah,
he's just going through and looking at the feedback that he gets. He's literally just glossing over any negative criticism, and he's kind of just like shoving that over here in the corner.
Out the easiest
what do they expect me to do? Some kind of fucking, and then creating a straw man out of that. But then he's zeroing in on anybody that's just like, slurping his knob about how great these actors are or something, and he's like, oh, we're gonna get those actors back. And,
Except though, all of the actors back. Some of the actors sucked and they ruined the project because they were the problem, and everything I do is great, and they ruined the project. But we're gonna get them all back because they were all great.
Are they getting the blonde chick back?
I think he said at one point that they were getting the whole cast back. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought
the
he
cast
said
is
all.
back. Everyone had such a great experience on Rogue Elements that they were eager to come back. That's what
what it is? It's just like how Tommy Wiseau bought like 2 different types of camera and everything to film the room and shit. You know what I mean? He had all this money and he had no idea how to do it's
okay. The Anya actress isn't in any of the
actually. The room is more enjoyable to watch. So
oh yeah, the room's better made film than this.
Well, and the things that could have been done better, and now that we have the opportunity to apply those lessons to what we do next, it seems silly not to make use of them. Anyway, this is my long and pretty rambling way of getting down my thoughts about this film, what I learned about it, and well, what I hope to accomplish next. And I'm sorry if I bored the arse off you, but if you're interested to learn a bit more about it, then there it is.
I've learned nothing more about it.
It does read like this was only made unlisted as a decision at the publishing stage. Like he felt like he made this thinking it was going to go out wider, right?
Well, the issue he has with making it public is if that girl is coming back, she's going to see it.
Yeah. And also drawing all his viewers' attention to the fact that this movie exists and isn't very good.
And also, a lot of the criticisms that he dismissed easily were from people who actually support him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
This is the face like everybody collectively makes after like watching Elements. It's just like, all right. Wait, there's a couple more seconds here. Let's see.
But
anyway, that's all I've got.
He's just going to say his catchphrase.
Yeah.
Right.
But based on that video as well, if the next ones are the same and are not the best films ever made, then what's the excuse going to be?
Now there's no more, like, he can't keep using the same excuse. He says he's learned all these lessons, which means
it is
the
a
next one should be
break
better.
glass in case of
Although
criticism.
he has promised us it will be generic. So
okay, there we go.
The Critical Drinker is an online persona and YouTube content creator who gained popularity for his humorous and often blunt film and television reviews. He presents himself as a whiskey-drinking, cigar-smoking character who offers unfiltered commentary on various aspects of popular culture, particularly movies and TV shows. The Critical Drinker's reviews are known for their distinctive mix of sarcasm, wit, and criticism. While the Critical Drinker has amassed a significant following and gained recognition for his entertaining and often polarizing content, he has also faced controversy. One of the main points of contention is his sharp and at times caustic style of critique, which some viewers find abrasive or offensive. His blunt approach often involves mocking elements such as plot holes, character inconsistencies, or perceived agendas within the entertainment industry. Another source of controversy surrounding the Critical Drinker is his occasional use of politically incorrect language or provocative statements, which have led to accusations of sexism, misogyny, and other forms of bigotry. Critics argue that his comments can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and contribute to a toxic online environment.
What am I thinking of? No, it's not. Yeah, probably stuff like that. That, and it's like,